Hi everyone. So today's video, I am going to be talking about friendship breakups and 3 things that I learned about friendship through recently going through a friendship fallout myself. And I went through this crazy situation where, it wasn't just a fallout, as in we sort of gradually stopped texting each other. This was a crazy blowout. And we are no longer in contact with each other. I have since blocked her number. So I'm not going to get into the story today, but I want to talk about 3 things that I learned about friendship through this breakup. And if you're going through something similar, hopefully this video will help you. So the first thing that I learned is that you don't have to be friends with someone just because you've known them for a long time. This was a hard lesson to learn because I've always valued loyalty in relationships, and it's very hard for me to let go of the past, I think. This is what I've come to realize. But sometimes people drift apart, and that doesn't mean you're not loyal or a bad friend. People grow apart, and it's more common than not to realize later on in life that you don't have the same values as maybe you once did before, or are just not in the same life circumstances. You begin to realize that the main commonality between the two of you is just the fact that perhaps you went to the same school when you were younger. I didn't really think of it this way before because I always gave superiority to friends that I've known for a long time just because of the concept of time. But you have to realize that you can make new friends and have those relationships just be as deep and fruitful as the ones that you've had from your childhood. And I always thought that new friends wouldn't get me as much as my older friends because they weren't there in that moment and they didn't have context to my upbringing and to who I was as a child or a teenager. But the fact is that most people don't need that context to be able to love you or to be friends with you. It's like when you get into a romantic relationship. If you date someone in a long-term serious relationship for 1 to 2 years, they probably already know you just as much as your friends from elementary school. It's okay to be friends with someone that you've known for a long time just because you value those memories together. But if there's a misalignment between your values, it's, I think, best to understand that and just to keep a healthy distance so that you can set appropriate boundaries for that type of friendship or relationship. Okay, the second thing that I learned is that the anger will go away with time. And the best revenge is to rise above it, and you will rise, okay? So after this huge blowout, I realized after a while that there is no point to stooping to their level. And that is what the Wizard Liz said in her, I think, last video that I watched about how to get over heartbreak. And I definitely agree. It's like whenever someone does you dirty, just know that it is 100% their own issue. And the best thing that you can do when something like this happens is to not focus on them and their actions. I know it's very hard because your mind is ruminating about, they did this to me, they did that. But the only thing that you can really do is to kind of like alchemize the situation to be in your favor. And the way to do this is to actually take the opportunity to learn something about yourself. And I know that sounds really dumb, and maybe that's not what you want to hear, because especially if you're in the anger of the moment, that's not something I would want to hear either. But know that you can learn something about yourself without taking blame in the situation. And the way that you can do that is to look at the situation objectively and to remove your thoughts and your emotions from the circumstances. And I know that's very difficult to, it's easier said than done. But for example, one of the things that I learned through this fallout is that I actually have a compulsion to be right in an argument. And it's very hard actually for me to admit to that, but I've only learned this in small ways in my everyday life, but it's never backfired on me so bad because it's not something that has really hurt me in the past. Because when you're right in an argument, you feel good about yourself. You always feel like, yes, I am right and you are wrong. But I learned the hard way that because it was so difficult arguing with a person who could not understand my perspective and feelings on things. Usually when I had a conversation and I needed to be right, it was always like the other person was willing to almost compromise and see things from my point of view. But this person, who I thought was my friend, could not understand that at all. And so that's something that I'm working on, is my ego's need to be right all the time and defending this self-created identity that I've made up with my own thoughts and needing to protect this. So I think that is a very valuable lesson that I will be taking with me. But apart from that, the anger will go away with time. And here is some advice on how to get over that anger while you're going through it, because like I said, it will take time, so you might need to go through it rather than just wait it out if you don't have the right tools to do that and be kind of removed from the emotions and the thoughts. So one thing is that if you're continuing to ruminate on the situation, if the situation is very fresh, then it's best to honestly just compartmentalize it for a few days and cool off and see how you feel about the situation after a few days, let's say 2 days of trying not to think about it as much as you can. Okay, number 2 is to talk to the people around you and surround yourself with loved ones. If you're around good people, they will listen and be there for you, and this will often help calm your emotions because you will be validated, and if you're surrounded by good people, that good energy will just kind of negate the toxic negativity that you've been around for a very long time, because that energy can really skew your perception and judgment, and it's very important that you sort of immediately remove yourself from that situation if you are in it right now. That kind of goes into my third point, which is that to process the breakup, you have to first take time to cool off from it, like I said. But if you are still in the situation, if you're still in the breakup and in contact with this person, I strongly recommend that you become no contact with this person, especially if you realize and know that this is a toxic situation. Because I realized that only after I had blocked her number and I was full on no communication with this person that I was able to start fully healing. Because if you continue to have that energy around you, you're not going to get very far in the healing process, because you'll be constantly going back to essentially step 1 of your emotions and your reactive nature. And the final thing is that if you're into journaling, I would also try to write it all out. Once you do that, whenever you start to ruminate in your thoughts about the situation negatively, then you can respond to yourself with, I already wrote about that, we've already been through this, and we don't need to think about that anymore because it's over and you've already put it down on paper. So if you're into journaling, I would recommend that as well. I know it can be hard to almost write. For example, I love to journal, but I found it really, really hard to write about this situation just because it felt like it was bringing back the memories and the pain way too presently, and it made me feel like I was once again in that situation. So you don't have to write about it, but if you're into that and that's something that you think is worth doing, then I think that's also a good idea. For me, I think it was almost like too painful to do that. I think for me, what worked was talking to those people around me, which is kind of funny because usually I would always take the opposite approach. Like I would always journal about it, and then I would try to refrain as much as possible from talking about it to people in my close circle. But for this situation, it was just so outlandish and ridiculous, and I think almost too painful that I just couldn't put it down on paper. I had to vocalize it and speak it out to other people. Okay. The third thing that I learned, and this is going to sound cheesy, but at the end of the day, always lead with love. And I know that's just maybe sent shivers down your spine from the cringe, but I think it's easy to have something catastrophic happen with a friend and take that and make it into a new type of suffering to become less trusting. But it's so important that you take this situation and do the opposite of that, and to actually be more grateful for the friends that you do have, and to be grateful for the love that you have around you already. And it doesn't have to be your other friends, it can be your family, your pets, your plants. My whole friendship breakup and blowout situation happened while traveling, of course. And I remember I couldn't wait to go back home to hang out with my other friends after this happened. Not because I was dying to tell them the story, but honestly because I was really itching to be around normal, good people again and real friends. And it really made me realize how lucky I am to have those other people around me that really do care about me and my well-being. Honestly, I remember wanting to take this and use this situation to become a better friend. And I think that's the best approach to handling a friendship breakup, because at the end of the day, we can't control what other people do to us. We can only take charge of our own accountability for our own actions and behaviors and learn how to become a better friend. And as painful as the situation was, I think that it really was meant to happen, because I think the universe just needed me to honestly learn these types of lessons. And it was a very hard lesson to learn, but I'm actually really grateful, and I think I am a better person out of the situation. And I can only speak for myself, and I only really want the best for her, actually. Like, I know that sounds so weird, because if you knew the things that she had done to me, it would have been like everyone was telling me to do this and to do that. But honestly, the best thing that you can do is really just to live in the current moment and to learn from the mistakes of that situation. And yeah, just like I said, alchemize it into something greater than you, beyond anything that really happened. And I'm just grateful that I'm here alive, So yeah, it was a really tough situation, but I'm really proud of myself for going through that and getting through that. And like I said, I'm not perfect, but I'm learning every day. There's a lot of love around. Don't think that just because you went through this breakup that there's less love, if that makes sense. It's like the love is infinite. Just because this relationship didn't work out doesn't mean there's a net negative in your life. Friendship, love, these types of things in life are kind of boundless. Not just in terms of you can make new friends, but it's like I said, for me, I feel like I wanted to expand the love that I had with the current friends that I have. It's not about you lose one person in your life and you have to go out and find the next friend. It's really about noticing the love around you. It doesn't even have to be in other people. I'm talking about finding that in the friends that I currently have, but I also feel like I found it more within myself. I found more love within myself, actually. So I'm really proud of myself for that. If you're going through something similar, just know that time will heal. In this moment, you might be feeling one thing or another, but you will get past this and you will be a better person out of it. So I wish you nothing but the best and all the love. That's my video for today, and I hope that it helped. Bye.